So, we're going to talk about our chemical reactions test that we took, and we'll go through the answers together. So number 1 says, what is the best explanation for what happens during a chemical reaction? So really we're asking ourselves about a chemical reaction. So let's look at the answer choices. Number 1 says 2 different substances react with each other for a physical change to happen. Well, we know that a physical change doesn't occur in a chemical reaction, so we know that A is not the correct answer choice. B, the mass of the products must be different than the mass of the reactants. Well, that's not true either, because that doesn't follow the law of conservation of matter, which says that you can't create or destroy matter, you can just simply change its form. So C says one or more substances react to form new substances that have new properties. Well, in a chemical reaction, that's true. New substances do have new properties. So let's check D just to make sure that we have the best answer. And D says the reactants do not change identity, but the reaction gives off gases or heat. Well, that is true about gases and heat. That is a chemical reaction, but they do change identity. So C is your best answer choice. Number 2, in an experiment combining 2 unknown substances, a white solid is produced. In this chemical reaction, what do we call the white solid? Well, remember in our demonstration when I took 2 liquids and I stirred them together and they created a solid, that was called a precipitate. A precipitate is evidence of a chemical reaction and is when we have 2 liquids combining to form a solid. Number 3, which of the following distinguishes a chemical reaction from a physical change? So really what the question is asking you is, what's the difference between a chemical reaction and a physical change? A, the chemical reaction is reversible. Well, that's not true. Only in a physical change can we reverse. B, the properties of the reactants are the same as the products. Well, no, the properties would actually be different. Number C, the mass of the reactants is different from the mass of the products. Well, we know that's not true because that's not the law of conservation of mass. Or D, a new substance must be created from other substances. Well, that's the answer because in a chemical reaction, a new substance is created. Number 4, a scientist is testing the reactivity of a meteorite that fell in a forest near Austin, Texas. The scientist completed a number of experiments on the meteorite and took extensive notes on what she observed. Which of the following observations does not provide evidence of a chemical reaction? And the clue word here is not. So which one of these is not a chemical reaction? The meteorite's color changing? Well, that could be a chemical reaction. The meteorite's shape changing? Well, shape is a physical change, so that's the best answer, but I'm going to rule out the other ones as well. A smell changing? Well, that is evidence of a chemical reaction. Or bubbles forming on the meteorite? Well, that's a chemical reaction too. So our best answer choice is B, the meteorite's shape changed. Number 5, students perform an experiment in which a crystalline substance is added to a beaker filled with water. The crystals dissolve and a precipitate is formed. The bottom of the beaker feels warm to the touch. The temperature is monitored and the temperature data is recorded. Which observation in the above experiment tells you that a chemical reaction has occurred? So what evidence do I have that a chemical reaction's occurred? Was there a decrease in temperature? Well, no, there was actually an increase in temperature. The beaker felt warm. The crystals dissolved. Well, crystals dissolving is a mixture, and that's a physical change. A gas is produced. Well, nowhere in here did it say that there was a gas being produced. Or the formation of a precipitate. And right here in the answer, in the question, it tells us that a precipitate was formed. So your best answer is D, the formation of a precipitate. Number 6, look at the chemical formula provided. How many atoms of hydrogen are found in this substance? So I'm going to look for the capital H, and I can see that there's a subscript of 4. But be careful because the H is actually inside of the parentheses, and the parentheses have a subscript of 2. So that 2 is really telling you that you have 2 NH4s. So 2 times 4 is 8, and your best answer choice was D. And number 7, with respect to the law of conservation of mass, what is the most accurate way to describe what happens to the atoms involved in a chemical reaction? Well, are the reactant atoms destroyed? No, because the law of conservation of matter tells us that we can't destroy atoms. B, the reactant atoms are rearranged to form new compounds called the products. Well, that is true, but let me check the other answer choices just in case. Nothing happens to the atoms. Well, we know that's not true because they do rearrange to form something new in a chemical reaction. Additional atoms are required. Well, that doesn't follow the law of conservation of matter because if I don't start with nitrogen, I can't end with nitrogen. So my best answer choice is B. Number 8. Which equation best obeys the law of conservation of mass? This question is asking us to balance the equation. So I'm going to look at my reactants and my products, and I'm going to see which ones are equal. So let's start with A. With A, I have 2 nitrogens on the reactant side, and I have 2 nitrogens on the product side. So far, so good. I also have 6 hydrogens on the reactant side, and I have 6 hydrogens on the product side. So far, so good. That is definitely balanced. But let's rule out the other choices. B says I have 2 hydrogens on the reactant side, but I have 4 hydrogens, because remember, I multiplied the coefficient, the big number, by the subscript, the little number, so that's not equal. And then C says I have 4 silvers, Ags, on the reactant side, but I only have 2 on the product side, so that's not equal. And then when I come to D, I have 2 nitrogens on the reactant side, but I only have 1 on the product side. My best answer choice is A. Number 9. What is wrong with the chemical equation shown above? So what am I looking for? I'm looking to see what is wrong with it. Well, let's see if it's balanced. I have 1 carbon on the reactant side and 1 carbon on the product side. I have 4 hydrogens on the reactant side, but I only have 2 hydrogens on the product side. So this equation is not balanced. So I can get rid of C and D because C and D are talking about balanced equations. So A says it is not balanced. It follows the law of conservation of mass. Well, if it's not balanced, it's not going to follow the law of conservation of mass, which says that I can't create or destroy atoms. Basically, what I start with is what I end with, even though the atoms can rearrange themselves. So the best answer choice was B. Number 10. Which equation below is correctly balanced? Well, once again, I'm counting those atoms. So we'll start together. Carbon on the reactant side has 12, and then there are 6 carbons on the product side. So A is not the correct answer choice. B says I have 24 carbons on the reactant side, and look, I have 24 carbons on the product side. So far, so good. We'll keep going. I have 44. 2 times 22 is 44 hydrogens on the reactant side, but I only have 22 hydrogens on the product side, so that's not balanced. Let's go to C. I have 12 carbons on the reactant side, and I have 12 carbons on the product side. So far, so good. But I have 22 hydrogens on the reactant side, and I have 44 hydrogens on the product side. So that's not balanced. So let's check D just to make sure. D says I have 12 carbons on the reactant side, and I have 12 carbons on the product side. I have 22 hydrogens on the reactant side, and I have 22 hydrogens on the product side. And I have 11 oxygens plus the 24 oxygens, which is 35 oxygens on the reactant side. And I have 12 times 2 is 24 oxygens plus 11 oxygens, which is 35 oxygens on the product side, So D is my best answer choice. Number 11. C6H12O6 is a chemical formula for glucose. How many atoms of oxygen would there be in 2 molecules of glucose? Well, how many oxygens do I have in 1 molecule? I have 6. So if I were to have 2 molecules, 6 plus 6 is 12. Your best answer choice was C, 12. Number 12. What is the most distinguishing characteristic of a chemical change? The appearance of a substance changes? Well, no, that's a physical change. A new substance is formed? That's what happens in a chemical reaction. And let me double check the last 2 answers. The change can be reversed easily? No, that's a physical change. Or the identity of the substance remains the same. That's a physical change. Your best answer is answer choice B. 13. Examine the provided description of a human's digestive structure and their functions. Which of the digestive structures in the table cause a chemical change to occur? So I need to look. Number 1, teeth breaks down food into smaller pieces. Well, no, that is a physical change. What about saliva? Well, we know that spit is a chemical change because there's enzymes that starts breaking down food. What about your esophagus transporting food? No, that's just moving food from one location to the other, and that is physical. Stomach acid, that is a chemical change. So your best answer choice was 2 and 4, which was B. Number 14. Which of the following examples involves both a physical and chemical change? A hot bowl of oatmeal must cool down? No, that's just a physical change. A carrot is cut into smaller pieces? No, that's a physical change. The acid in your stomach breaks down food. Well, that's a chemical change, but it's not a physical change. A piece of bread is chewed. That's a physical change, but before it's swallowed, it suddenly tastes sweet. Well, that's because a chemical reaction is taking place with the saliva in your mouth. D is the best answer choice. Number 15. Which of the following is a characteristic of a physical change? The identity of a substance changes? No, that's a chemical change. The size or shape of the particles of a substance may change? Well, that's true because size or shape changing, that's a physical change. Let me rule out C and D. The change cannot be reversed easily. That's a chemical change. Or the color of the substance may change. Well, color could also be a chemical change as well, so my best answer choice is B. Number 16. Why is carbon considered an element, but carbon dioxide a compound? Well, because carbon dioxide is made up of 2 different elements. It's made up of carbon and oxygen, whereas carbon is just one type of atom. Number 17. Which of the following will most likely indicate that a chemical change has taken place? So Rob decided to push 500 pounds of marshmallows inside a locker. Well, that would probably be pretty hard to do, and it'd probably be pretty funny to watch, but that's just a physical change. Sue covers her mom's Porsche with 20 gallons of red fingernail polish. That's not a very nice thing to do, and that is a physical change. Craig grinds 200 pounds of granite into a very fine powder. Again, that's a physical change. Lou mixes 20 ounces of bleach with 30 ounces of ammonia, resulting in toxic vapors of gas. Well, because there was a gas being released, we have a chemical change, and so therefore D is our best answer choice. So, don't forget to turn in your test corrections and your test paper to get up to a 70 for credit. If you have any questions, feel free to come in or email me. Till next time.